If devil fruits represent dreams, whatever Saturn has must be someone's nightmare. I love this idea, because if there was some sort of ancient science that could bring dreams and desires into reality, then surely there's always going to be some nefarious scallywag out there who says, yeah, well, what would happen if we did the opposite to that? Or what if it was simply someone's dream to turn the world into a nightmare? Because there's always going to be some prick who's going to want to do that. And it makes me both excited and terrified to see more of Saturn's powers, because Luffy's fruit embodies that full-on positive dream state. The anything's possible and everything's gonna be fine sort of atmosphere. But Saturn is the exact opposite, and nightmares are also pretty disgustingly overpowered. You know when you're having a nightmare and you're trying to run away from whatever it is, but then all of a sudden your legs don't work, or they're like super slow for no good reason, or all of a sudden, there's a wall, and even if you could run, there's nowhere to go. Something like that. A power that can bend reality much like Luffy's. I think the best part was when Saturn looked at Luffy and said, Nika. That was an interesting moment because I'm not entirely sure how to take it. Depending on your personal agenda with the Elder Stars, the fact that Saturn recognizes the sun god form could serve as evidence that he is indeed hundreds of years old. An idea that has fallen out of popularity, funnily enough, when the Nika fruit was first introduced. Because the way the Elders spoke about it back then made it seem like they were just the latest generation of geriatrics. And that could still be the case. They could have records of previous users of the fruit, and let's say it's a description which Saturn recognizes, and this could be the first time that he's actually seen Nika with his own eyes. Although it's definitely overshadowed by the Kizaru brain fisting panel on the other side of the page, again, I think that belongs in a gallery. Wasn't there a point in the story where Brook got mistakenly summoned by a demon worshipping island and he popped out of a similar looking circle? Yes, he did, except he popped in instead of out. But here's the thing, in the review video I said, what if Saturn isn't a fruit user? What if Saturn's a legit demon? Probably not, but there is a precedent for potential dark magic being used in One Piece. This is one of the lesser focused stories, but Kuma sent Brook to Namakura Island, which in English is called Lazy Bones Island, specifically the village slash town slash slum slash whatever it is of Harahetania, or Hungaria in English, which is known as the land of poverty, and it contains a Satan worshipping tribe led by a man named Pecori. Although he wasn't named in the manga, this was an anime thing, which apparently comes from the Italian word pecora, meaning sheep, because this head tribe dude was wearing a goat hat. Very, very satanic. And it's quite fun to look back on because remember, Kuma very strategically chose these locations, generally based on what would benefit each Straw Hat the most, like sending Nami to Weatheria to learn all of the sciences. Perfect. When it comes to Brook though, I think Kuma sent him to the one place he knew would actually accept an undead skeleton walking among them. Then Brook gets captured by the Long Arm tribe, who are somewhat at war with the Satanic tribe. Complications arise and ensue, and then Brook becomes a global musical sensation, somehow. But let's get back to the dark magic. I think that a lot of people's first thoughts with Saturn's spell circle was how similar it was to the one Brook appeared in. And the answer is, not very. And look, gonna be honest here, I'm not 100% up to date on cultist symbol terminology, but Pecori's symbol is 2 overlapping squares, making it an 8-point pentagram thing. Actually, you know what? Surely it can't be a pentagram if it has more or less than 5 points. So I guess this thing is like an octagram? Is that a thing? Cultists, you can let me know in the comments below. What I can say is that this appears to be the first acknowledgement of magic by the tribe, because Pecori says, our black magic actually worked? What a terrifying sight. Meaning that this is either the first time they tried it, or the first time it actually resulted in anything. But it's not out of the question to think that Brook, if he was able to see Saturn's circle and Saturn's horrifying form, then he might have some insight into what's happening due to his brief time with the Satanic tribe. Or at the very least a brief reference like, that's cool, I've been summoned like that before. Speaking of Brook, I have no idea where he is right now. We got a quick catch up of the rest of the crew in this chapter, but he and Robin are nowhere to be seen. Or are they? Because there's a particularly unclear panel in this chapter. Kinda random, but who was injured that Nami, Usopp, and Chopper were transporting? I couldn't tell, and it's not super clear. I agree, it's not very clear at all, but I'm assuming that it's Stussy. Maybe. Although there are a lot of people who need transporting right now. Robin's down, Stussy's down, York needs to be restrained, and Kaku is still quite firmly embubbled. But by the process of elimination, it can't be York because she's massive, it can't be Kaku because there's no bubble, it could maybe be Robin, but we've forgotten to shade her hair. Because I have to say the nose and the outfit is very Nika Robin-esque right now, but the light hair makes me more inclined to say Stussy. Actually, both Robin and Stussy are kind of wearing the same outfit right now. The now classic Oda jacket and panties combo. And don't you think that I missed that Bonney leg spread in this chapter either. As we've discussed, we all know why this was drawn, and I would be sincerely grateful if anyone could go through Egghead Island and count the amount of butt shots Oda has drawn, because I think that we need to start a weekly counter. But back to the person being transported, I don't know, maybe it is Robin and she's just been drawn a bit weirdly. There have been concerns about the art in One Piece post Oda's eye surgery. There's been a lot of images of like background Kizaru's going around on Twitter, and I haven't personally noticed anything wrong, and when it comes to Twitter, it's a space designed for people to complain. So just because it exists there doesn't mean it's an actual human problem. But this is one case where I think that it could probably definitely have been clearer. Do you realize Bonney has the power to bring back Brook's flesh? So I didn't even come close to thinking about that, but surely you are 100% correct. If Bonney can take a body to the point where its flesh is completely decayed, then surely she can reverse Brook's body back to around half a century when it still had its meat claddings, which I imagine could be very useful. A big problem for Brook is that it's usually difficult for him to, blend in on a new island, hence why Kinemon had to dress him up like a ghost on Wano. But it could be really useful for a stealth type mission, which Brook is very good at. I'm not sure if it would ever happen though. Brook is a character who is very much comfortable out of his own skin. He's just so happy and confident in what he is that I don't think he'd want his body back even if it was an option. And at worst, it's cruel because Bonney can't make that change permanent. It would also make Brook a lot heavier. He wouldn't be able to do all his fun stuff like running on water. You know what? He'd probably hate it. I have a feeling next chapter is going to start with Bonney confused as to why she can't age Saturn, only for it to be revealed that she is, but as suspected, the elders are immortal. So the years she's adding on to him feel like nothing. That or the other way around. She's trying to make him younger and it doesn't appear to be working, but it is. He's just been this way for so many hundreds, maybe thousands of years that shaving off age isn't visible. But I agree that this would be an amazing opportunity to finally answer that old elder age question, provided that Bonney doesn't get swiftly knocked out or swatted like a future fly in panties. Because Saturn doesn't seem too bothered by people attacking him. I dare say he probably knows what Bonney's abilities are as well, so he might just stand there and take whatever age manipulation she throws at him. If Sabo survived 5 of these old fellas, then Luffy and the others can survive 1. Yeah, I was thinking about that. You've really got to give Sabo a lot of credit for somehow managing to escape not just from 1 demon, but 5 elder demons, and an emu was there as well. And also the absolute audacity of Sabo to attack all of them at once with a basic Logia Fire Fist. There is some question as to how Sabo actually managed to escape, because if Saturn can teleport, then that's probably enough to catch him on its own, but the others can likely do the same. In fact, they probably have access to a whole hotel minibar's worth of other classic demonic abilities. But I think that once Sabo left the empty but still filled throne, the elders and Emu were powerless to stop him, because doing so would mean revealing their demonic forms in the Holy Land. And look, I guess I don't know this for a fact, but I would suspect that the world nobles have no idea that their leaders are demons. I think that they genuinely think of themselves as blessed gods, and it would be an unnecessary shock to the system to see demons roaming around the Holy Land. But why Sabo head not explode? Ha ha ha. True, you'd think that with this power, that's the very first thing they would have tried to do. And my guess is that they can't explode the heads of people who, strong haki mean no explode, like the Law Kaido interaction. Or maybe they did try, but because Sabo is a Logia user, it exploded and it just became fire and regenerated. The haki explanation works because it's such an easy out for any overpowered interaction, but it would also explain why only Marines above a certain rank were allowed to look at Saturn, because I suppose that any Marines below that wouldn't have the haki required to withstand the indiscriminate head crushing. Actually, is it indiscriminate? Saturn seemed to discriminate pretty heavily against that one guy, because I swear the guy behind him was also looking in Saturn's general direction, but he still has his head. What's up with that, Saturn? What's up with that? But the question now becomes, what's going to stop Saturn doing that to, say, Stella? Because he's a very clever boy, but I don't think that Stella is a haki user, so his head seems mighty vulnerable right about now, although they may actually want to keep his head intact for the sake of Punk Records. Actually, that's another question. What even happens to Punk Records if Vegapunk dies? Which, to be clear, that is the plan. We're trying to kill all of them, but especially Stella. So if that happens successfully, then the fruit power vanishes, right? And then all the world government are left with is just a giant hunk of brain meat. What are you going to do with that? Could feed the 30,000 soldiers, I suppose. Actually, now that one guy's head has exploded, we'll call it 29,999 soldiers. Saturn is like Bale from Diablo now. I know that game and I agree with this statement. So here's a rare non-One Piece interest of mine. Ever since I was 11 or 12 years old, I've gone back and played Diablo 2 at least once every year. And I'm not particularly big on gaming and never really have been, but there is something about that world and Diablo 2 in particular that hooks me. So it's an unexpected pleasure to find a hint of that flavor in One Piece. And you know what? It's also a bit berserky as well. The Elders are kind of like the One Piece world equivalent of God Hand. Is Black Maria now confirmed dead? Black Maria is confirmed nothing. I've actually seen quite a few people confused by this, and look, if you are a casual fictional pirate enjoyer, then good on you, and I don't blame you at all. Because we now have two half-human, half-spider with horns characters. And if you're just keeping up casually, then yeah, it kind of looks like Saturn has Black Maria's devil fruit. Her devil fruit, I hate it because it's so hard to say, but I'm gonna try anyway. It is the Kumo Kumonomi model Rosamigale Gravogeli, or Gravogelli. I don't know, I never know. I always look it up and I never remember. But it's based on an extinct Triassic era spider. So it's an ancient Zoan, whereas Saturn is either a mythical Zoan or just something else entirely. Meanwhile, let's also not forget Onigumo, who is based on a generic house spider. Lots of spiders in One Piece recently. While we're here though, I genuinely have no idea what happened to Black Maria, or in fact, any of the Tobiropo. They were all beaten, but unlike Kaido, Big Mom, King, and Queen, they remained in Onigashima. So I don't know if they all escaped, I don't know if they died, they might have. Or maybe they were imprisoned on Wano, I don't know. It's one of the many minor annoyances I have with the end of Wano, because the raid finished and it was just like, bam, 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 we are out. You still have questions? Too bad. Because I, Ichiro Oda, am bored of drawing historical Japan. So we ignore that color page. Zoro's family tree, lol. Yeah, I usually ignore color spreads because they're really cool and everything, but I don't usually have a lot to say that adds to the discussion other than, yeah, it's a pretty cool picture. So let's see what we've got going on here. And yep, guys, I can confirm that this is a pretty cool picture. I'm guessing that the person up there in red is Ryuma, a character who we're going to see animated soon because I believe that Toei is making the Monsters one-shot. Monsters is one of the prequels to One Piece that is actually canon in the One Piece world. But I think the thing that takes my eye most about this color spread is Kuina. More so than most characters in One Piece, this shows how Oda's art style has evolved over the past 2.5 decades. Because Oda almost never has any reason to draw Kuina. So the Kuina in my mind is always the early Oda style, so to see her drawn in Oda's modern style is undeniably a pretty cool picture. I think it's worth noting that in planetary order of the 5 elders, that Saturn is the 5th planet, so that may be why he's number 5. So if we're not including Earth, that is correct. Saturn would be the 5th planet from the sun. And with that in mind, I guess we can assume the numbers of the others as well. Saint Jupiter would be number 4, Saint Marcus Mars would be number 3, Saint Ethan Baron Venus Jura would be number 2, and Saint Topman Walkyrie would hold that ever so coveted number 1, if indeed these numbers mean anything at all. You didn't say anything about the Ride Fruit Lady. True. This is Vice Admiral Bluegrass. We got her name and her devil fruit in this chapter, which is the weirdly specific ride fruit, and I really like her design. Oda is shockingly good at drawing unbelievably cool elderly people, and I am very curious to know exactly how this fruit functions. With a pacifista, the idea of a ride fruit seems pretty perfectly designed, but I wonder if Bluegrass could use this on people and control them, or also inanimate objects that are designed not to move, like buildings and such. I mean, if Kujaku can whip buildings into place, then surely Bluegrass can ride them. And if it can be used on people, then that is pretty big, because that would make it another one of those devil fruits that essentially acts as a one-hit KO. Like Sugar, Haki aside, all she needs to do is touch you and you're done. And Bluegrass seems similar. She touches her opponent and the fight is over because you're under her control now. In fact, they both have slavery themes going on as well. A bit insensitive, I might add, to use the slavery fruit on an effigy of Bartholomew Kuma, who was used by the world nobles as a slave to ride. And in fact, Bluegrass is even riding him in a very similar way. After Wano, where did One Piece is going? Don't know why where does One Piece will going from here, but I'm really liking it. Egghead has been throwing a lot of crazy concepts at us. For an arc on a future island with a seeming scientific focus, we've gotten a lot of insane stuff like cloning, but at the same time, it's also gone in the complete opposite direction as we dive into magic and demons, as well as the process of quantifying dreams and encapsulating them in magical fruit. Also a mix of both. We have giant ancient robots which are more advanced than our technology, but these advanced robots are powered by magical drum beats. So much stuff that really should not work on paper. But somehow Oda manages to seamlessly blend it into this ridiculous world. I really don't want Egghead to end. I think that this is the best One Piece has been for quite some time. Quite a long amount of some time, I might add. So Oda is on fire, but luckily I can put him out with the sheer amount of salivating I'm doing to see what happens next.